Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar session. My name is Bob West with Meister Media. Feel free to let me or your Meister Media sales rep know if you would like to further this discussion after today's webinar on a one-on-one basis. We would be happy to get in touch with you and anyone else of your team at a time that is convenient for you guys. Quickly, an introduction for those of you whom I haven't met before. Again, my name is Bob West. I joined Meister back in 2007 in our ornamental group. I've been in B2B media for most of the last 20 years, although I did a stint as a director of marketing and corporate communications for a company for a few years, so I have sat in your proverbial shoes as well. My title is technically Director of Interactive Sales. I basically exist here at the company to support our sales reps and to be a resource for our clients as we work through together the transition to digital media. We put together today's webinar for that very goal, to be as educational and informative as possible. Direct email marketing falls under my responsibilities here at the company when we're doing this for our clients. So over the last 3 years, I've probably seen upwards of 1,000, we call them e-directs, go out from the company on behalf of our clients, looked at the metrics on those, and hopefully we have some learnings from that to share with you. As I noted, this is hopefully the first of a number of these webinars. You know, again, we view education being a key part of our job here as a media company, especially as media is changing so dramatically. Future topics will likely include, you know, e-newsletter and website advertising, how to get the most out of your webinars, website design and development, content marketing, which is certainly hot with many people right now, but and any other topics that you might be interested in hearing about. Again, feel free to let us know, and we'll see if we can help answer any questions. So what are we going to try and cover today? Here's a quick rundown of you know, sort of the presentation. Again, quite a few things here, but really this will get us through most of the basics of e-directs. We are going to go through a number of examples of some e-direct creative. You can see them there, the examples of top performing e-directs as well. And we certainly appreciate the clients who have agreed to let us feature their e-directs today. So let's get into this. Let's start with this question of timing the send. For companies that are looking for email marketing, generally our preference is to work about a week in advance of a send date. The send date is chosen by you as the client. In the past, we have had a number of safeguards in place in regard to how many e-directs we would send on a given day. Over time, we've learned that the market isn't as sensitive to those things as we had originally concerned or considered them to be, although it's something we certainly do continue to monitor. We obviously want to protect the list from any fatigue issues. But you as the client, you're going to choose when your email is going to go out, you know, if it goes out through us. Clients are always looking for direction on when is the best time to send their e-direct. I will tell you that we tend to see mornings are a little bit better than afternoons, although it's not a big deal. The one area we recommend people steer clear of is Friday afternoons, and then obviously anything as it relates to weekends, holiday weekends, things of that nature, you know, we generally recommend avoiding, although over the last 12 to 18 months, to be honest with you, we have started experimenting more and more with sending our own emails on Saturdays, and we've been pleasantly surprised by the metrics those sends have produced. But so, you know, timing the send, pretty simple and straightforward. Your choice. We're going to work with you to find a date that makes the most sense, you know, for you. Where you really, as the marketer, have to start making some decisions or have the opportunity to start really fine-tuning your email is when you get into the list. You can target or create your e-direct list by providing us direction on any number of different criteria that we may have on the circulation file for your particular market. If you're looking at our fruit and vegetable grower audiences, you might want to only reach tomato growers or potato or pepper growers or something to that effect. So we can sort and build the list based on crops, the recipient's title, the size of the operation, whether that's acreage or annual sales volume. We can obviously segment our list based on geography all the way down to a zip code. Whatever criteria you provide to us, from that we will go ahead and build the list. And oftentimes that's a back and forth process. A client will come to us and provide us initial criteria they're interested in. We'll come back to them with a count of names. From that, they may change their criteria, either to add names if they feel like they have more room, to reduce names if they feel like they need to from a cost management standpoint, whatever it might be. But that's a process we will work through with you. And if you're interested, again, just let your Meister Media sales rep know. They can provide you with a list of all of the different fields on which we're collecting demographic data for your respective market. Interesting to note, for what it's worth, the average eDirect went to about 4,200 names in 2014. Again, we sent about 400 efforts on behalf of clients last year. They went to about 4,200 names on average, and clients clearly seem to be prioritizing this idea of targeting the market as much as possible. The average send in 2013 had been to about 5,000 names. So we actually saw an increase in the number of sends as more companies get involved in direct email marketing, but those companies were focusing their efforts more and more specifically, so the average send was going to a smaller list. So okay, once we have a send date and a list, let's start talking about creative here a little bit. This is where, I guess the keys really come into play in terms of what's going to deliver the results for you. The first question that we're going to ask clients once we've got the basics out of the way is, what is the goal for your eDirect? This is something that many times companies don't really think through all the way, for reasons we certainly understand. But are you just looking for brand awareness or a message you need to get out to the market? Are you really focused on maximizing the number of visitors you can get through to your website, sales leads, some other goal you might be looking to accomplish? But the process or the goal should really drive the creative, and it's all too often we will see eDirect creative come over from clients who have told us the effort is all about click-through activity, for example, and they send us a creative that really doesn't have any links in it, or the entirety of the message is clearly presented in the send itself, so there's no real reason for the audience to click through for more information, whatever it may be. Or even worse, a client doesn't think about how the creative aligns with their goals until after we've provided post-send metrics. Again, what we'll see is a send goes out with a comprehensive amount of information in the send itself, and when we provide reporting, the client is disappointed that there weren't more clicks, but all the information the grower might have wanted they received in the email itself. So we really really encourage clients to be mindful of what is the goal that they are trying to accomplish as they get into the eDirect and start building the send. Once you've got your goal and you start moving into the creative side of things, a couple of things that we've learned, that we would certainly share with you. Imagery, be very mindful of it. The images should be secondary in terms of the amount of space. We've talked, and there are best practice recommendations out there, about a 70-30 ratio of text to imagery, 60-40 ratio, something like that. Obviously no hard and fast rules, but the audience tends to engage more, certainly with text than the images, although the images are valuable and worthwhile. Certainly the markets we live in particular, ornamental horticulture, greenhouse and garden center, extremely visual markets. Your artwork, your pictures in that regard are very important. And be mindful of the fact, one of the things we've learned by pulling these metrics reports on 1,000 sends over the last 3 years is different people will interact with your creative in different ways. So picture, myself, I would never think to click on a picture expecting that to link me through to a website. You'd be amazed at the number of people that will click on pictures, that will click on headers, that will click on company logos. So we really encourage everybody to maximize the number of links that you have in the creative, even if they're all going to one place. They're all going to the same place, that's fine, but you don't want to limit the audience's ability to interact with the send based on your own, preconceived notions. And like I said, I never would have guessed the way people click all over the place on these e-directs. A note on that, just while we're on the topic, and I'll get into the metrics here a little bit later, but at the end of the effort, we will provide you metrics reporting to provide performance details on how your e-direct did. We report the number of clicks by URL. So if you have 5 different areas within a send that all link to the same URL, we will tell you a total number of how many people clicked on those 5 different links to go to that one page. If you are interested in really understanding the audience's behavior and you want to know how many people click on each of the different areas to take them through to that same web page, then that's a conversation we should have on the front end to make sure we're setting up unique URLs, even if they're just redirects back to the same web page. That can be certainly some informative information for you. We understand that. But again, if you just use one URL for 5 different links, we're not going to be able to discern which particular parts of the e-direct really got the click for you. So something to keep in mind as you're building the e-direct. So let's talk about the content. And again, this is really driven by goal, or this is an area where we want you to be mindful again of the goal of your tactic. The great thing for you as a marketer is that our audiences want to learn. They want information that will help them increase their sales, increase their profits, improve their production tactics, whatever it may be. They are so thirsty for new information. So you have a great opportunity to engage them with you and your brand. They're very open to your information. There is a bit of a balance, and it's not always one of those things where we can identify it right off the bat for each company. Too much content in terms of how much you put in the e-newsletter itself is likely going to reduce the number of clicks you get through to your website, whereas more stories, again, probably shorter blurbs or teasers of information, and we'll show you an example or a couple examples here in a moment, are likely to create more clicks. But now you've got a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it a fractured message, but if you take more of an e-newsletter approach where you have 4, 5, or 6 different stories, you have a good opportunity to maximize the number of clicks to the website. But you might water down a primary message in doing so. Again, this is the balancing act and why we want to keep the goal in mind as we're creating the e-direct. So call to action. You've got your send date, you've got your list, you've got your creative built or just about built. Let's think about the call to action. And just to make sure we're all familiar from a terminology standpoint, this is what you want the recipient to do after reading your e-direct. This is as you see there at the bottom, click here to watch, click here now for a special offer, click to read more, whatever it might be. You want to be as clear and direct as possible. Again, it's easy for any of us when we're building our own e-direct, to get so close to the project that we think it's self-evident to anyone else what they're supposed to do after they read through the information. You don't want to assume that. These folks need to be told, want to be told what to do and why they should do it. Click here tells them what to do. It doesn't speak to the value to them in doing so, however. So we certainly recommend, as often as possible, the call to action, reinforce the value, learn more, watch, special offer, whatever it might be. Also, sort of the top bullet there, link to the right page. be mindful of the fact that if you are promoting a specific product in your eDirect, then the link around that product should be the page on your website where the grower or retailer or garden center is going to get more information about that product. Again, this may seem self-evident, but quite often we'll see companies set up e-news ads, website ads, or e-directs where the links simply go back to the home page, for the company. You're not doing the prospective customer any favors if you're just sending them to the home page and making them do the work to find your product page. Ideally, you have a unique page on the website for each product or a family of products that you can take them to where they're really going to find the information. But if you consider that the eDirect itself is maybe sort of the free sample you get at the grocery store, once they click, they're looking to basically dive a little bit deeper into the product that you're offering, learn a little bit more, and get a little more information that they can consume as well. So you want to be mindful about what URL you link to. Next is certainly the subject line. This is something you will provide to us or anyone who's sending out an email on your behalf. This is an area where we did a lot of testing in 2014, worked with a number of clients to really try and dive into subject line performance and some of the key takeaways that we could figure out to maximize open rate, because there's no two ways about it. The subject line is what you use to get people to open the email, and and just so we're clear, that is really the sole purpose of the subject line, is to get people to open the email. You don't want to do it in any way that's misleading or sets people's expectations in a way that the creative itself will disappoint them, but the purpose of the subject line is to get them to open the email. The biggest thing we learned through our research and our efforts in 2014 is the importance of making sure that the subject line speaks to the audience's value proposition, if you will, the what's in it for me. If you're sending out an eDirect to announce a new product, writing it to say new insect control product available is the message from your perspective as a manufacturer, perhaps. Does the grower care? I don't know that they care. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be curious because they always want to know about new products, but you're not speaking to the value to them, why they should actually open the email. I don't know if they care that it's a new product. If the product can offer improved control of chinch bugs, if the product can offer 30% labor savings, one fewer pass through the fields, something to that effect, now you're speaking in a language that, again, the grower, the retailer, the dealer understands and appreciates and sees value in. So I should also note, if you are so inclined, we can do A/B testing. A/B testing is basically where companies provide us two different subject lines. Generally, what we'll do then is we will split the file in half randomly on a 50-50 basis and send out the exact same creative at the exact same time. If your eDirect is going to 4,000 names, 2,000 of the recipients will get subject line A, the other 2,000 will get subject line B. When we report metrics to you, we will report them based on those two subject lines, so you can really start to get data to back up your theories or beliefs in terms of how best to engage your particular audience. This is one of the things that makes a lot of sense, I think, if you're really starting to incorporate eDirects or email marketing into your marketing efforts on a regular basis. If you're going to do 12 sends a year, then you really want to understand subject lines. There is a little bit of an extra cost associated with it, a $100 charge, so it's not too daunting, we don't think. If you're just going to do 1 or 2 eDirects a year, it's probably not worth your time, truth be told. But if you're building a campaign, or like I said, if email is going to be a monthly part of your email or your marketing, then subject line testing probably makes a lot of sense for you. Again, be mindful of what the audience is going to find on your website once they click. Think about their experience. Does the page they are taken to follow through on the promise? If the call to action was click here to watch a video, make sure they go to a page featuring a video. And again, be mindful of which page you want them to go to on your website. So okay, let's move into some of the creatives. Again, thank you to the clients who have agreed to let us show their creative. These are sends from 2013 and 2014. We've tried to take a range of approaches or grab examples from different approaches. One of the things we've certainly learned is there are no silver bullets or absolutes. Sometimes we will see creative come through and think this has no chance of performing well, and it performs great, and then we'll see some that comes through and looks fantastic and underperforms. It's just you just don't always know how the audience is going to engage. But here's an example from last year, a software company in the ag retail space. Pretty simple and straightforward. That's the entirety of the creative there on your screen. They've got 4 different URLs featured in the creative. The text up here in blue is these are live links. Each one is repeated by one of these images, and the text down here. I can tell you this e-direct that you're looking at right here was the top performing send of any e-direct we sent out in 2014 from a click-through rate standpoint. Nothing earth-shattering about it. I mean, they had a good message. I mean, it was an interesting product at the right time for that particular market, and they were tremendously successful at engaging the audience. Again, highest click-through rate of any send we produced in 2014. Which again, let me take a quick moment, make sure we're all using the right, or not the right, the same vernacular. When we're talking click-through rate, it's one of the key metrics for email marketing. We figure click-through rate by dividing the total number of clicks produced by a send by the total number of delivered emails. The benchmark for all of our sends is 1.74%, so that's the average click-through rate for all of our sends from 2014. We do have benchmarks for each of our respective brands because different industries behave differently, and but this is the sort of information we certainly think you should get from any, whether it's a media partner or anyone else who's providing or who's working with you on your e-directs. Here's another one of the top performing efforts from last year. This is from the greenhouse space. Again, that's the entirety of the creative that was sent out to the audience. This is, I would say they had a campaign in 2014, very simple and straightforward. The call to action is very obvious. Get your free training guide now, very clear where to click. They talk to you, I forget what the exact subject line was, but it certainly does tell you, what we're going to talk about, misconceptions about growing. Very strong effort. Also another idea here is you can get, this is a lead gen campaign for these guys. When you click through to their website, you're going to provide some sort of contact information to get the training guide. And, that's a database for Berger, and they're going to be able to follow up with those growers as they see fit or use that information to build out their own database. But again, this was a very strong send. This next creative for the ag retail space from the Andersons, very effective, and the Andersons is a company that really does email marketing very well. The subject line for this one we thought was particularly effective. So low salt starters, talking about the type of products here, making your first pass count. So again, there is a value proposition. Obviously, no one out there wants to have to repeat work, so making the first pass count, is certainly going to speak to the audience. We've got multiple URLs going on in this creative. Obviously, each of these green boxes is a different URL talking about different products. Also want to note down here, download a digital copy of our specialty products guide. This is a regular part of the e-direct creative from the Andersons, and we've seen a number of other companies use a similar recurring promotion of a product guide type tactic. And the folks in our markets are always interested in product information, so this always produces a strong click-through activity as well. Here's an example of creative that I think really reinforces the importance of the brand and the company sending it out. There is not much here from a call to action standpoint, but I can tell you this send produced a strong click-through rate. Howard Fertilizer, so this went to citrus growers in the state of Florida. They had a very targeted list. If you're not in this marketplace, you may not know, but Howard Fertilizer is certainly a very strong, long-standing brand. Perform very well. You wouldn't think that there's much of a reason to click on this, but a great many of the growers did. We don't know, excuse me on that one. What we don't know, obviously, is how many of them may have picked up the cell phone or picked up their phone to follow up via the cell phone or the email address down in the bottom there. That's certainly something a number of companies like to do, featuring cell phones and emails. If you're so inclined, that certainly makes sense for some companies. It likely detracts from some of your click-through metrics. So it's just something to keep in mind when you go ahead and review the metrics at the end. Rivulous Irrigation, you may not know this name, formerly John Deere Water. When they switched the name, they wanted to reach out to the marketplace in a number of different ways just to communicate the new name last fall. This was one of the e-directs that they do, or that they produced and that we sent out on their behalf. Again, you can have a very awareness-oriented campaign, nothing wrong with that. Not much in the way of call to action here, but they really weren't too concerned with you clicking through to their website. It's just something to keep in mind when we get to the back end and we start to look at metrics. Here is an e-direct that went to the retail garden center market. This was a company promoting a particular variety of plants that they offer. These are Coleuses. Again, download our guide to Coleus 2014. This was I recall the the top clicked link in the entire creative was right there. Number of clicks throughout. Not much in terms of call to action. View our full line of spring and summer annuals. The call to action probably could have been a little more clear, a little stronger, but this was a very strong performing effort for them. One note, we see a lot of e-directs, and a number of the examples we're showing today do the same, feature social media links. Just so you're aware, there's nothing wrong with doing that. We rarely see our audiences clicking on social media links, though. So if you're launching an e-direct solely to support your social media, we would encourage you to temper your expectations for the performance. Here's another approach. Again, I think the goal of this one was largely to get the information communicated, research on a new insecticide, bullet points, chart, pretty quick, easy read. You could probably get through this in 60 seconds, if you're a grower. There is a clear call to action down there at the bottom for more information, visit, and the website to visit. But again, what you just don't intend or don't expect the audience to do, about 3/4 of the clicks on this particular e-direct took place up here in the header. Now the header was a live link that went to the same URL, but because there was a redirect, we were able to track them separately, and we were able to identify that this was what the audience clicked on to get more information, more so than they did down here. Interesting to know, again, how the audience behaves. This one might be a little challenging to see, but we wanted to get the entirety of the e-direct there on the screen for you. Our friends at Cicada have been using this e-newsletter approach for about 3 years now. I call it an e-newsletter approach because of the amount of content in it, the number of different links. This one had 15 different URLs on which the audience, could click. So we certainly see pretty high click-through rates. This gives them the opportunity to stay in touch with growers on a regular basis, whether they want to promote particular products or new videos. I think a video is featured up here, or other key news they may have. A unique approach. Not many e-directs out there, take this sort of format, but this has been very effective for Cicada, certainly. And then one more a great example of using content and content marketing. Again, this is John Deere Water, so before the name change, they produced some educational videos. These are the same two gentlemen here as featured in the video. So this whole Voice from the Field is one testimonial campaign. The video is produced and it features both of these growers, talking on camera about the products. Then 2 articles have been produced from that video. In the event someone is turned off by video or doesn't want to use video or watch video, there's links here that they can check out. And again, different calls to action, more on the benefits, more on cotton farming. Obviously, these are a couple of cotton growers, but a very effective campaign for John Deere Water, now Rivulus. So a couple other notes just on clicks. Incentives certainly can work. We've seen people offer prizes, enter for drawings, get a free hat or a free t-shirt. The one thing we challenge people to think about before you go down that road, it can get expensive. Think about how many hats you want to give away or whatever it might be, and also consider whether or not those are really good click-through visitors to your website, or are they just, prize chasers, if you will. Certain types of sends or messages typically produce lower click-through rates. Contests and event-oriented, if you're going to put a message out there, hey, come see us at this trade show or something like that, certainly makes sense to do that to leverage your trade show investment. It's going to most likely be a lower click-through rate generator. And again, the social media, just not a real strong pull. A couple of key benchmark numbers, what we're going to report to you for any send we execute on your behalf. Delivery rate, so if you rent 4,000 names from us, how many of those do we actually deliver to? That should be, 98% or higher. The open rate, what percentage of the audience did open your send? Gross opens is the total number of times your eDirect is opened compared to unique opens, which is the number of different people who open it. You would be surprised at the number of times people open an email and come back to it time and again. We talked about clicks and click-through rate. And again, this is the sort of information you should get whether you're working with us or any other media partner out there. The data is just a key part of digital marketing. We certainly, would encourage you to ask for this from any of your partners. We will typically report within 7 to 10 days after the send happens. And again, I mentioned this is the sort of information we can provide separately. If you are interested, happy to talk about some of the market specifics, but again, you can see some of the variations by market in terms of 2 of the most important figures, the open rates and the click-through rates. So some of these audiences engage with eDirects a little bit differently. Again, these were generated from about 400 sends that went out in 2014. And the other thing you've got going is if the companies serving this market aren't doing an effective job with their eDirect design and execution, that may depress some of the rates and the numbers a little bit. Quick note on pricing, just to be upfront and clear. Here's how we price, at least our email direct marketing business. $450 per 1,000 rented emails, plus a $150 development and analytics fee. So a typical eDirect, like I said, 4,200 emails would be roughly $2,000 to give you an idea of how that works out. So want to be just clear and help everybody understand what options are available to them. And if you are so inclined, we'd be happy to put together any counts for any of the clients if we can. So if you're interested in getting an account or anything like that, please feel free to let us know. So again, trying to be respectful of time, we're running a little bit over 30 minutes here. We have a couple of questions, so I can tackle these. Again, my contact information is here on the screen. If you have any questions, you want to talk about this further, feel free to get in touch with me or your Meister Media sales rep. I sit within 50 or 75 feet of most of them, and if I can't get the question answered for you, I'm sure they can, but we'd be happy to follow up and share any other information we can with you. In terms of some of the questions that we've got on here, can we build eDirects, or can we help clients build eDirects? Yes, we certainly can, and we do that on a regular basis. The involvement varies. I would say the majority of our clients provide us with a designed PSD file or a JPEG, something along those lines. From that, we construct the HTML that ultimately gets sent, but other clients find it easier simply to provide us a little bit with the pieces, parts, and have us do the design and the development work. Again, there may be an additional charge for that. It's usually, I don't know, $200, something in that ballpark for a couple hours of work. It varies based on the project, of course. Another question here, how far in advance do companies have to communicate with us if they're interested in eDirects, and also how quickly could we execute if someone had to do something on short notice? It's like anything else. The further out in advance or in front we can be, the better. We like to have a week or so. That certainly makes for a simple process for all involved. We want to have time involved for you as the client to get to review a proof copy, if you will, of the HTML once we build it, and then proof it. In terms of how fast can we go, the question we're going to come back to you with on that one is how ready are your materials? If you're going to have us build it, then we're going to need a little more time. If you've got the JPEG file ready and you just need to go, then we can move in, within 48 hours, if we need to, and we recognize that, sometimes companies need to do that. Another question here on the impact of increasing use of mobile on eDirect's performance. I will tell you that is something we're starting to spend an increased amount of time looking at. We had a conversation just this morning on one of our brands, and the increasing number of opens or percentage of opens that we're seeing on our own e-newsletters on mobile devices. We've taken some steps earlier this year to start moving towards more mobile optimization. At this point, it varies by market, but more and more of these growers and retailers are using their mobile devices to open emails. It's just, we think at this point you want to be mobile friendly, but you don't have to be truly mobile optimized with your sends, if that makes sense. So it's something to be mindful of, but it's not a must-have. Another client has a question here regarding the pricing, and someone else has asked if we could go back to the benchmark figures, so I can put those back up on the screen if you're interested in those. And again, I can provide copies of this presentation afterwards for anyone who's interested. Somebody asked about pricing. Is there opportunity for discounts, basically, if someone's looking at a 3, a 6, or a 10-time eDirect program? That's a conversation for you to have with your sales rep. But obviously it's one of those things like in anything else, the more you buy of something, there certainly usually are some pricing efficiencies there. So looks like that gets us through most of the questions. A couple other ones that we have in here, I'll probably follow up with you directly yourselves to get those answered for you, given the nature of the question. But again, want to take a moment just to say thank you. Hopefully this was worthwhile for you and worth your time. Again, we're planning on making these sort of info webinars a bit of probably a monthly occurrence, as long as I can keep up with them. And if there's any other information we can provide to you, please feel free to let us know. We'd be happy to do so.